Hi, what's up and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm sharing a not so great painting that I did from a lesson off of Enterclass with Sergei Kurbatov. So let's get into it and I'll share with you what I felt like went wrong. All right, so like I mentioned, this painting was done from a class on Enterclass, and I was really excited to give this a try, and it didn't turn out so well. And before I get into explaining the reasons why, when I'm reflecting back on it, why things didn't go well, I want to just make it a point to say that you might be watching this and thinking that this is not a bad painting, that you're probably going to wonder why I think it didn't go well because it looks fine. And I want to clarify that it's not that I think it's a bad painting. I just had expectations for it to be different, for it to look more like Sergei's in a lot of ways. And that's what happens when we learn from people, right? When we are able to see what the final product should look like, and I say should with quotation marks, because it obviously doesn't have to look exactly like the instructors, nor will it ever look exactly like the instructors. But when we are able to see what we are trying to produce, we then have an expectation, and that expectation is going to be unrealistic because clearly the person who's teaching us has more experience and has been able to paint this in a style that they are very familiar with because it's their style. And what we're doing is almost trying on their style. And at least that's the way I think about what I'm doing. I'm trying on another person's style and mimicking it, and also trying to work on my own skill set. And so there are a lot of factors going on there, and it makes it hard, right? It makes it hard off the bat when we're starting. And so because we have those expectations, if it doesn't turn out the way we think it should and it's not the best, then we're going to feel like it's not great. And that's what happened with me here. So I don't necessarily think it's an ugly painting. I don't think it's a complete failure, but there are so many parts of it that I wish were better, and I can see them, and I can see them compared to his painting, and that's what's making me say what I'm saying. But that being said, there are so many things that I learned from this that I'm definitely going to carry forward. I hope to do this one again, but let's get into the reasons why I think it didn't go so well. So the first reason I think it didn't go so well for me is that I tend to like to paint paintings all in one sitting. So even if it requires me to walk away for 10 minutes while my paper is drying, or use a blow dryer and then come back later, that gap in time for me is better when it's shorter. So if it's an hour or 2 hours, or if I can even just finish the painting that same day, then it typically will go better. The best for me is if I can finish all in one sitting, is like I was saying before. But I have a toddler, and so a lot of times with these more complex paintings that require a lot of different layers, I can't finish it all at once. I have to finish it in between naps. So this painting in particular actually took me over the course of 2 days. And for me to walk away from a painting and then have to come back to it is difficult. And I think that's what made it harder, even harder for me. And it made it really disjointed. So that was the first thing that I think was hard about this painting. Maybe one of the things that went wrong was I wasn't able to complete it all at once. And the second thing is I really felt like I wasn't able to simplify the details the same way that Sergei was, especially in this part right above the boats on the left side with the storefronts. I don't even know if you can tell they're storefronts, but there are storefronts back there, and buildings and umbrellas where people are sitting, or I guess they're not open yet, but they are closed umbrellas for lunch tables. And I just couldn't take all of the detail that I was seeing in the photo and simplify it the same way that Sergei does it. And he does it so beautifully, just with some it just looks effortless brush strokes that come from experience. I know when I'm watching him is that it's coming from his experience of painting, of looking at things and being able to simplify them in his mind and know just the right amount of brush strokes and dabs and dots to add to convey the story of what's there without actually having to paint everything literally. And so that's something that was hard for me. I felt like my brush was probably not the best brush to be using. It felt clumsy. It didn't feel delicate enough. So that's definitely something I learned, was maybe not to use that same brush that I was using. And maybe it's a little too dull. Maybe I need to switch to something that has a better point to it. So that was one thing I made an observation about. And another thing I think didn't go well for me was understanding the order of the layers. So as I was doing this, I started thinking to myself, and I was getting in my head, that if it wasn't for watching this video, I asked myself the question, how would I know what layers to put down? Like when I look at the photo, which I can't share here because it's not my photo to share, but when I look at the photo, how did Sergei know that he should paint the entire background yellow? Because I didn't see that. I don't see all this yellow, but yet he did it, and he does it beautifully. And I think that this is also, I know from experience, and it's just something that I have to keep doing over and over and by myself, because following along is definitely one thing, but taking a photo and interpreting it myself, making decisions for when to put down colors, where to put down colors, what order to do things in, those are all things that I need to develop for myself in my own style, in my own order. And so I think that was hard for me. That was one thing that went wrong here, was I started getting in my head. I started doubting the process almost. I was still following along with the video, but there were parts of it that I wasn't sure if I was doing right. And I think I actually even went out of order in some points because I just went rogue, and I probably shouldn't have. And so, or I skipped a video. I think I remember at one point I had skipped one of the lessons by accident and then realized that I went out of order. So there was that. And that made it a little difficult once I think I realized I did something out of order. And then by then it was a little too late. So that was hard. And another thing that I thought was difficult was also, I tend to paint lighter, I realized, than I think I'm supposed to. So I shy away from very, very dark colors. And this painting had a lot of dark colors because it had so much shadow. And the shadow was very blue. And it was working with a lot of water. As you can see, I was trying to follow along and tilt my paper so the water would run, and it's a lot of water, a lot of paint, but I didn't go dark enough because I'm not used to painting with so much dark. And so that was a new thing for me too. And I think anytime something is foreign, it feels weird and it makes it hard. So that was another thing that made this difficult. And especially in the shadowy areas, there are a lot of details that are lost. And Sergei also does a great job here of being able to pick out just the right details that he sees in the shadows of the painting, or in the shadows of the photo, and then include them in his painting. And it's a artistic interpretation at times for what you want to do, and it's his artistic interpretation. And so sometimes when I look at it, I don't actually know where those colors or shapes came from because they're not literal. So I can't really follow exactly from the photo. So a lot of it sometimes is up to my own interpretation. So I had to interpret it myself and then make some decisions, and they might not have been the best decisions, but I tried. And so I think that this was such a learning process for me. There were so many details. I didn't realize that something that on the outset that looks so effortless and in some ways simple, because there's not a lot of intricate detail. So it looks simple when you look at the final painting from Sergei, but it's deceptively complex. There's so many layers and little details, and that's really what makes his painting just so beautiful, and these just types of paintings in general so beautiful. And I just walked away from this realizing, wow, I have so much to learn, and there's so much more than meets the eye when you look at these loose watercolor paintings. And I just love them. I love the complexity in the simplicity and how much thought has to go into it, even though it's simple. And that is what makes me so interested in trying to get better at this. Not only that, I think painting loosely like this, it is naturally really fun for me. I think some people don't like it because it's not very controlled. And I think this is a great balance. It has just enough control for me, but enough looseness that I feel really free when I paint, and it's fun. So I just wanted to end by saying that, again, I hope that if you're watching this and you're hearing me criticize my own painting, that you don't think that I'm by default then classifying you where you're at in your journey as being a bad painter. So that's definitely not what I'm trying to say. I think some people interpret it like that, where they automatically assume that if I'm saying that my painting is not good and you're at a point in your journey where you feel like you couldn't achieve this yet, that automatically it makes it futile for you to even try. That is definitely not what I'm trying to say. And I want you to realize that if you're not quite there yet, if this looks really daunting to you and that you're saying to yourself, I couldn't even paint something like this, and she's saying it's bad, I want you to know that it's because we're all at different points in your journey. And I guarantee you that if you keep practicing and if you keep painting, you'll be at this point one day, and probably very soon. You'll be at a point where I'm at, where you're painting something that your past self would tell you that it would be impossible for you to do, or it's so far-fetched that it would be so hard for you. You'll be here and you'll tell yourself, I could have done better. There are so many things I could have improved on, and this isn't my best work. And that's essentially all I'm saying about my own work, is that this isn't my best work. I know I can do better, and I'm excited to keep trying. And I'm not saying all of these things to put myself down. I'm not saying it was not so good because I want sympathy. Definitely not doing that. I'm just observing it from a very, like a scientist. I'm just looking at it like almost like data. Like, what is it that didn't go well? What is it that I want to improve on? And I hope that by sharing something that I don't think went that well, and I hope that by sharing the things that I think went wrong or didn't the things that I feel like could have been better, it helps you sort of think through the same things on your own paintings. And the last thing I want to leave you with is that I definitely got to a point very early on here where I wanted to give up, probably around the time where I was painting the storefronts, which is very early on. And I told myself, this is a lost cause. I don't want to do this anymore. But I almost made myself finish because I knew I would learn a lesson, and I wanted to just see it through and see how it went, because there are so many mistakes that I could make here that then there was less pressure. Because I already kind of classified this as a lost cause, then the pressure's gone. I don't have to worry about messing it up. It's already in my mind messed up. I'm not going to paint something perfect. So then I can experiment more, be a little bit more bold, not be afraid. So if you're at a point where you're painting something and you also want to give up, I hope that you keep trying, because you can still learn something and be less afraid of making mistakes. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little different than my normal videos, but if you liked it, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.